Hi, I'm going to talk to you about A-level physical education. I'm going to talk to you about the course and how it's made up, what type of physical activities you can be assessed in, and what kind of possibilities it might lead to in the future.
In Year 1, you will learn about the anatomy and physiology of the body. You will learn about the cardiovascular, respiratory, muscular, and skeletal systems. This is something you will be familiar with from what you learnt at GCSE level. In addition, you will also learn about the recovery of the body after exercise and different ways that you can help the recovery after that intense exercise. You also learn about energy for exercise and how the body provides energy differently for a sprinter and for a marathon runner. You'll also learn about how athletes exercise at altitude and in the heat, and what effect this may have on a performer, and how they can train for this. In Year 1, you will learn about the anatomy and physiology of the body. You will learn about the cardiovascular, respiratory, muscular, and skeletal systems. This is something you will be familiar with from what you learnt at GCSE level. In addition, you will also learn about the recovery of the body after exercise and different ways that you can help the recovery after that intense exercise. You also learn about energy for exercise and how the body provides energy differently for a sprinter and for a marathon runner. You will also learn about how athletes exercise at altitude and in the heat, and what effect this may have on a performer, and how they can train for this.
So also in Year 1, you'll look at skill acquisition, and this is the coaching side of the course. So we'll develop your observation skills and how to pick out key points. And you'll think about things like, well, how do we learn? How do we learn these skills? Or how does a coach break down the skills so we can improve upon them? Or how does Usain Bolt focus on the win? Now you can see here there is a clip I want you to have a quick look at on YouTube, and it's to do with selective attention, and that might help answer your question about Usain Bolt. So take the test and see what you think. Okay, so we look at the ethics in sport in contemporary issues, and those of you who've taken GCSE, some of this will be very familiar. So we might look at, why do performers take drugs, and maybe how can we stop that? What impact has Sky had on sport? Is your TV at home dominated by football, as mine very often is, or does netball get an appearance sometimes? We'll look at things like modern technology and clothing. What impact has that had? Has it been beneficial to sport? Or how does it help? And things like goal line technology. Is it good for the sport or is it bad for the sport? So lots of fors and against in this part of the course, lots of debating. Okay, so towards the end of Year 1 and into Year 2, we look at sport and society, and we look at things like sport and where it came from. So things like football and how it started off as mob football, played not with a ball but with a pig's bladder, and it was played by two parts of a town, and they had to get the bladder from one place in the town, for example a steeple, and the other place might have been a tree, where they could do things like bite and kick and gouge people's eyes. They might look at things like class and gender, how that affects sport. So why is it that some females were not allowed to take part in sport? Why not? And how did that change? And why is it certain types of people play certain types of sport? I might look at the Olympic Games. How did it start? Where did it start? And why are certain sports allowed in the Games and not others? And then the impact of globalization. So how has sport travelled the world? Cricket was invented here in 1744 with the first written rules, and we took it to Australia. Now Australia beat us at cricket. Why is that? And then things like planes, trains, travel, different forms of travel. How's that made that easier for us to be more loyal to our sports teams as spectators?
In Year 2, you will look at exercise physiology. This includes diet and nutrition. We'll look at the importance of diet for an athlete on their performance, including how to work out how to calorie count to ensure a performer stays at their optimum weight. We'll also look at ergogenic aids, which will be something completely new to you, and we'll look at how that improves performance. Ergogenic aids are basically anything that help improve performance. They can include creatine, caffeine, and even running trainers. And we'll look at the range of ergogenic aids and how they help the athletes and their performance. We're also going to look at how an athlete improves their aerobic endurance, their strength, and their flexibility through a range of different training methods. And also we're going to learn about periodization. Have you ever wondered how Usain Bolt always ensures every 4 years he is at peak condition for that 100-metre or 200-metre sprint or that relay for Jamaica? He would go through a process, him and his coach, of periodization. He would actually break his training up into different blocks to ensure those 4 years that he stays motivated, he stays in the best condition, and that's something that we will learn about in Year 2. We will also look at the impact of sedentary lifestyle on coronary heart disease, joint mobility, and also mental health.
So in Year 2, we look at biomechanics, and again, some of you have taken GCSE will be familiar with some aspects of this. Things like levers, and you've probably done Newton's laws in science as well. But we look at things like, well, how can we put spin on a ball, and what impact will that have on the opposition or on that ball? How does a plane actually fly? How does it actually keep in the air? How do Formula One cars get faster? Can the technology of the car and the shape of the car make a difference? Or why does an ice skater spin more quickly when their arms are tucked in? So we have a look at these sporting examples and try to understand how biomechanics can have an impact to improve sporting performance. So in Year 2, we look at sports psychology, and this may interest some of you if you're looking in the psychological field for your future. And we look at things like, well, why do certain personalities enjoy or play certain sports more or less than others? How do you cope with stress, particularly when you're in a championship final? And what impact can that have? Or how does confidence affect performance? Okay, so for the practical then, you'd be assessed in one physical activity, unlike GCSE where you're assessed in 3. So here's a list of some of the activities that you can be assessed in. It can either be a team sport or it can be an individual sport. So you can see there are up to 40 sports that you can be assessed in, and they're quite diverse. You've got things like kayaking, trampolining, sculling, and rowing. So if you've got any sports you take part in out of school, this is absolutely ideal if they're on the list. So what profession could this lead to? Well, the first thing to remember is that it is an incredibly versatile course. There's lots of different parts to it that will appeal to a wide range of people. Universities regard this course very highly and accept it as a science. So it can get your foot into lots and lots of different professions, and here are a few of them. You don't always have to be a PE teacher because you take A-level PE. Sports marketing, PR and communications, sports scientists, physiotherapists, nursing, doctor, personal trainer, sports presenter, sports photographer, sportswear designer, sports psychologist, just to name a few there. So there are lots of different ways, and some of them are cited here, and there are many, many more. So if you've got any questions about what it could lead to, or any more questions about the course, please do ask one of the PE department, and we'll be really, really keen to give you some more information. So what resources would you need to help you with this course? Well, as you can see on this slide, there are a couple of books here. So the first one is the PE Year 1 and 2 book, which is the OCR book. And you can get that quite relatively reasonably priced off some websites. And then also we have the OCR revision guide there, and that's great because it's got loads of different exam questions and answers in there, which are really scaffolded to help with your understanding. Good website is here, it's the OCR one, and if you follow that link, it takes you directly to these exploration packs, which is kind of an introduction to the subject, and it shows you the kind of things that you would be doing. So it's got activities on there, things like modern technology and sport, and it's got the answers there as well. So it's there as a support whilst you take the course, but it's also really good to dive in and have a look before you take the course as well.